It was just a matter of time before I was found out. The apple may not have fallen far from the tree, but I was certainly no lawyer. A name? I had to give her a name, or the jig was up, something she could hang her hat on. It's Vice, Vice, baby. It's Vice, Vice, baby.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. Let me get some music going. Well, I hope you guys are having a good weekend so far. It is currently 3:22 p.m. here in good old Utah. Oh, let's see here. Welcome, Uncle Buck. Hello, Denise. Renee. Gohan. Sorry if I just butchered that name. And Melly. How are you guys doing? Well, I hope you guys have some drinks, some snacks ready with you, because I am going to read The Summer Friend by Steve Gosney. And also, by the way, I love that little art. Nice and simple, yet happy. The Summer Friend. Surfing, Music, and Growing Up by Stephen N. Gosney. A mostly true novelette about a boy entering middle school who finds a summer friend and a musical escape. Dedication and acknowledgements. My fourth book is actually a novelette. Who knew? This, I hope, will be part of a less academic series of releases for you. My gentle readers, this book might be a good reader for middle schoolers, as that was its original intent when I wrote this for my son as he entered that formative period. My next books will be for even younger folks. Brucey the One-Eyed Wonder Dog will be for readers up to 3rd grade. Keep an eye out for it. My Difficult Dog will be for first-time readers. I hope it will become a part of a parent's bonding with the child, as reading at night are some of the greatest memories from raising my son. Thank you to everyone who bought my previous books. Ideas and Answers in Law, Solutions to Common Problems Confronting the Criminal Lawyer. Prepare, The Handbook for Individual Freedom, and Death Penalty Debates, Net Positive or Net Negative. If you had not bought my prior books, this book would not exist. Thank you so much for bringing this work to the public. You are literally part of it. Thank you to the guidance and encouragement of Mr. Andrew and Emily Branca of the Law of Self-Defense and American Law courses. These are two people who have really had an impact on my life and encouraged me to do more. Thank you also to Mr. Nick Requeta of Requeta Law for lessons in grifting from the original webcasting grifter. Also, my fellow law commentators and fans, such as Iron-Livered Jeff from Legal Vices, of which I am proud member of the Vice Squad, Aussie Overlord, who come through big time for Brucey, Joe of Good Logic, and this secret stud, Andrew Esquire from Legal Mindset. Special mention to the moderately intelligent Megan Fox, who occasionally investigates. Some editing suggestions came by way of introverted Tatiana and not as shy Chandler Remington. Some great writing tips come from the wise L. Jaggy Lamplighter Wright and super writer John C. Wright, who is my shade 15 years in the future. I would also mention some of my other internet buds, the mentor Danielle, the enthusiastic milkshake girl Steph the Alternerd, the goat herder Valhalla Awaits, the president of my fan club Nicola, the expert Max from my Vegas and Charlotte meet, Max from my Vegas and Charlotte meet and greets, who stand in for all my super fans, and all of the great chatters who are so kind to me. As a sensitive guy, I love you. The love you show in the wild and woolly world of the internet really keeps me engaged. How about the incredible Tom Sailors? Farmhand Tom, who I am humbled to call a friend, and happy to chill his order eliminating spray at farmhandtom.com. And also, you can tap into his major Shopify skills at tomsailors.com, who redesigned my web preference. Let's not forget law cards at getlawcards.com. Thanks also to folks like Josh Pritchard at ibsnservices.com, who makes a finished product into a Kindle book. Rock from 99designs.com, who did the nice cover logo and is doing a redesign for all the books. This adds to the great work of Jacob Turnbro Designs Inc. of jacobturnbro.com, who designed the nifty logos for my first two books. Jacob also designs marching band performances, if you're in the market for such things. My audio engineer buddy from way back, Mark Ignofo at Real Time Duplication, edited and converted my second and third books into audiobook format and will do the same with this one. He can be found at realtimestudios.com. People within my circle have assisted in this work. This circle includes great supporters Patrick Finnegan, Matt himself, and definitely not Brandon, who have been so generous in their support. Thank you to my supportive group of friends and family, without whom I could not be the person that I am. Friends are part of me, including the late Derek L. Brooks, Anna Brooks, Kenan and family, Chris Watson and family, Mary and Tim Casey, Jian Yang, Dr. Roger and Liz Louise and family, Danny and Robin Berneberg, Dr. K. Michael Reynolds, the late great Dr. Marty Deneen, and Marianne Deneen, Deacon Bruce Gazinski and family, Father Bill, the Prince of Peace family, the Knights of Columbus, the late Noble Mac Burnton, Ryan Van Ridge, Neil Hanush and family, Kathy Finn and Drew, Dr. Brian L. Cutler, Mr. John Zack, Mr. Michael H. Lambert and family, Sandy Brooke Bishop, Covert Jury Operators and family, Mary Rose and Marty Peterson, the late great Judge Richard O. Watson, the late Mark Bernier, the Honorable Dmitry Krasikov and family, and many others. Oh, and let's not forget my friends Andrew, Brian, Kim, and Callie, who were part of this adventure. I have nothing but warm thoughts about all of you. Specifically, and most important of all, are my family, including my mom, Layla D. Gosney, who led by example with her hard work and guidance over many years, and Bob Fritz, the teacher of so many, my brother Cliff, and his family. My wife Michiko C. Gosney is the love of my life and makes me a whole person. My son Stephen C. Gosney, who gives me purpose, and the God above. And thank you, gentle reader. Peace be with you, Stephen N. Gosney. Wow, that was a lot of people. Prelude. I can't place the exact moment when childhood ended, but it was sometime in the summer after 6th grade. Before that time, childhood was filled with play. Green Army men battled dinky die-cast toys on the carpet of my bedroom. Ever greater forts of Legos and Lincoln Logs housed Hot Wheels car, ready to tear into battle scene at the whim of my imagination. The concerns of elementary school seemed small, and the world followed a predictable rhythm. Ormond Beachside. Every day during summer, the Florida sun crooks the sandy ground. Like clockwork, afternoon thunderstorms formed up in the center of the state. They roll over to the coastline to cool off the middays. This was the cycle of life that reigned during the summer of 1980 in Ormond Beach, a bedroom community suburb just to the north of Daytona Beach, Florida. We lived on Wildwood Avenue in Ormond Beach on the beach side. That is what locals called a part of the barrier islands that circle Florida. My room was my refuge. Toys and books filled a wall of shelves at the foot of my bed. Recently, my mom gave me a realistic brand stereo system to play some 8-track tapes. I placed this on a long, sturdy counter just under the bookshelves. Music, Legos, and reading were only interrupted by my mom's call to dinner, which would be pre-announced by savory kitchen smells. "You need to get out of the house more," my mom nagged, not for the first time. The latest round, I discovered, was inspired by her drive home, where my mom spotted a surfboard at a garage sale on John Anderson Drive. John Anderson Drive snaked its way along the riverside of the barrier island near our house. This surfboard could be exactly what you need. Go take a look. The garage sale was not hard to find. There were handmade signs directing weekend shoppers down Neptune Avenue to the open yard at the end of the road. Neptune Avenue crossed the barrier island from east to west, connecting an ocean access to the intercoastal waterway. I walked along the interior of the barrier island, past the more working class family houses, somewhat like my own. John Anderson Drive meandered down the barrier island, north to south, with the houses on the west side of the road having frontage on the inner coastal. The water frontage greatly increased the land values, and the homes built on these lots reflected that fact. People with money lived along the inner coastal. Now, mind you, just the land that they sat cost a bundle of money, much more than our house and lot put together. But they were neighbors, so a lot of these kids who lived in these houses went to school with me. No big deal. The garage sale house on John Anderson Road spread before me in its opulence. Used clothes, shiny bikes, and piles of books sprawled out on wobbly tables set up in the front driveway of the house. A kid I knew from school, Andrew Dyer, dribbled his basketball and shot hoops in the long concrete driveway as I walked past. I didn't know him that well, but nodded an informal greeting to him. I don't think he saw me, or at least he didn't act like he did. When I got up to the garage, I saw some older kids dealing with customers of the garage sale. They did not seem bothered by the ringing basketball dribbles from Andrew's practice. Instead, they counted money and talked to the other shoppers, milling through the stuff. Leaning just inside the garage was a tall, orange surfboard. One of the older kids, Andrew's brother Sam Dyer as I later learned, approached me when he saw me checking out the surfboard. "Hi, I'm Sam. You interested in that?" "Sure," I said. "Tell me about it." That, my friend, is a natural art single fin surfboard. It was previously owned by Bryant, he said as he jerked his thumb towards one of his older friends. And it can belong to you if the price is right. I could feel the salesmanship and charisma being turned on for this latest transaction. My bargaining skills left much to be desired, as a 6th grader idles very rarely. I took the direct approach. "What is the cost?" $200. Wow, that's a lot of money. But I'll think about it. Okay, but it won't last long. There are a lot of people looking at it. I stepped away from the table as politely as I could. $200 might not be much to someone who lives in a big house on the water, but to my family, it was quite a lot. The Florida wind stroked through my hair as I walked back home to Wildwood Avenue, thinking of how I could scrape together the money. I felt deflated as the pricing battle and reviewed how the negotiation could have been done more successfully. Resigning myself to another summer in my bedroom, I turned up Wildwood to my home. The surfboard. Mom greeted me at the door. "Did you get to look at the surfboard?" "Yeah," I mumbled. "Well?" "It's $200. Well, we might be able to swing it. Do you really want the surfboard?" That sounded encouraging. I tried not to act too surprised. I tried not to act too excited, so I just replied with an unenthusiastic, "Sure." Because tell us now if you're not interested. I knew this conversation could go on forever if I showed any doubts. So I just decided to say, "Absolutely, I'm interested. Can we get it?" "Okay. Well, I need to discuss it with Bob." Mom met Bob after the divorce. Bob quarterbacked for Georgia Tech football team, but my mom and him met after his sports career was over. His aesthetic physique and interests drew a sharp contrast to my sensitive introversion. Bob was mom's friend for as long as I could remember, and lived with me and my older brother on Wildwood Avenue. Mom always discussed things with Bob, even though she was going to make the final decisions anyway. Mom looked to Bob as a sounding board, and I knew that $200 would get discussed when I wasn't around to hear the conversation. I wasn't wrong. I trundled past my older brother's closed door, slipped into my room, and flipped on the stereo. An 8-track tape of the Village People thumped out a disco beat. I grabbed a die-cast Dinky toy, and flopped onto the jungle-themed covers of my bed that had been there since childhood. The tank made tracks on the covers as it rolled across them, looking for targets within its sights. Looking around, targets seemed to be absent. Michael Jackson's off-the-wall 8-track seemed to be a good choice, so I hopped up to place it in front of the line of fire. Just before my firing command, a knock rapped upon my door of my room. I turned down the stereo. My mom came in with a serious look on her face. We have discussed it, and think that you would benefit from some physical activity. If you think that's really what you want to do, then we will buy the surfboard for you. I knew what would come next. But we're not going to buy it and have it sit in the garage unused. I want you to be using it this summer. No sitting around in your room listening to your tapes goofing off. Bingo. $200 is a lot of money for us. If you get this surfboard, we won't be able to pay for any other hobbies this summer. The admonitions and conditions just went on and on. I pretended to pay attention as I rolled the toy tank back and forth. I knew this really was not a choice. My mom was telling me that I was going to get the surfboard and that I was going to get out of the house. No questions asked. I was resigned to this and knew to accept with a smile to avoid further lecturing. My ears perked up when I heard the part, "Well, if you really want it, I'll go to the bank in the morning." That would be too late. But they said they would sell it. There's lots of people there looking at it. Were there? Sam had said so, and a child believes what he is told. You just go back and tell them that you want to buy it, and they will hold it for you. Just get right back there because dinner is at 6. I shut down my stereo, put on my shoes, and headed out the door. It wasn't far to walk. Neptune Avenue was the next street over, and the garage sale was at the end of Neptune. But as I walked, I thought of what it would be like to get on the surfboard. I really was not that into physical stuff, although I was a pretty good swimmer. What I mean is that during elementary school, the other kids were much better at sports things. Andrew Dyer was one of them. Kickball was the thing. To me, watching as each kid got picked before me tortured my ego. Andrew could kick the ball deep into the sand beyond the baseball diamond as we played on. When Andrew was up, the kids in the outfield would move back. When on defense, Andrew would catch the line drives and target runners as they rounded the bases. This made him popular, and he was always on the first kids to be picked for teams. I secretly hoped Andrew would not see me. When my short walk was near its end, the garage sale house in all its riverside splendor came into view. A long driveway led into a 3-car garage beside a tree-cloaked, multi-story home. Inside the garage of the surfboard still stood. Andrew was still shooting hoops, sweating shirtless in the hot and humid Florida air. Is the board still available? Is the board still available? Sam came up to me with his long-haired friend smirking behind him. So, do you want the board? Well, I do, but I really don't know how to surf. It's easy, Sam assured me. Punk Us can show you how. Hey, Punk Us, Sam called out towards Andrew. Andrew yelled back, "What?" "Come over here." Andrew let the basketball drop and dribbled to a stop in the grass. He jogged over, wiping the sweat from his brow, and confronted his older brother with an annoyed look on his face. Sam was kind of the guy who gave everybody a nickname. Guess he even had one for his younger brother, Punkus. Somehow, this took a little of the intimidation factor away from his aura. This kid wants to learn how to surf. When can you take him? Andrew looked over at me with an impenetrable look. All he answered to his older brother was a non-committal, "I don't know." "Great. You can take them out this weekend." Sam's enthusiasm told me that he enjoyed ordering his younger brother around quite a bit. Andrew glanced over at me. I think he was assessing if there was a way out of the situation. All he said was, "Great." I don't think he was that enthusiastic. "I'm gonna have to bring you the money later. My mom's got to go to the bank." "All right. Come by our house with the money, and Punkos will take you surfing." With that, I ran back to my house for dinner. Into the surf. The $200 burned in my pocket, ready to be spent. The weekend arrived, and I'd been thinking about the orange single-fin surfboard. I called out to my mom as I headed out the door in my bathing suit and t-shirt. Perhaps Andrew would have wiggled out of the surfing lesson, but the hope was that he had not. Retracting my steps to the Dyer's house, I spied Andrew on the front porch rubbing something on the top of his surfboard as it lay on the green, freshly cut grass. The orange single-fin board was right next to it. "Hey, Andrew." "Hey, Gosman. Looks like I'd acquired a nickname." "Your brother around?" "No, but he said to put the money on the table in the kitchen. I'm heading out." "Just go inside?" "Yeah." Following Andrew's direction, I opened the creaky screen door and entered the back door of the house. The back door opened into a white kitchen that smelled of boiling chicken. A tall, older lady at the counter, who I assume was her mother, nodded politely to me. I smiled and took out the money and placed it on the table. His mother went back to whatever she was doing, paying me no mind. The screen door creaked again as I exited. The heat greeted me as Andrew and the surfboard awaited. Andrew picked up his surfboard. "You coming?" I picked up the old orange board and followed along Neptune Avenue towards the ocean. We walked together for a couple minutes when I felt the need to break the silence with some kind of conversation. So, you have any tips for surfing? It's easy. I'll show you when we get there. Andrew seemed much more reserved and quieter than his popular school image projected. A lack of talk filled the space between us as we passed the golf course, soon coming upon the Grace Lutheran Church. Feeling the need to break the silence, I said, "That place always gives me the creeps. They bury people in the walls there, you know." Andrew shrugged. Pretty soon we passed the church and got to A1A, which was the two-lane highway that runs north-south along the beach. The Neptune Avenue Beach approach was just on the other side, in between large houses built directly on the beach. The cars whizzed by in packs, disturbing the air as they passed. We waited for a gap in the cars and ran across the road to the Neptune Beach approach parking area. A few short steps and we were at the dirt-covered cement path that led down from the parking area across the dunes and onto the wide sandy beach. But Andrew took a left and climbed the wall that separated the parking area from the dunes. He ended up in the yard of someone's private house on the beach. I figured he knew what he was doing, so I followed him up the wall. From the top of the wall, there was a great view of the beautiful sand stretching out towards the infinite blue-green ocean. A collection of older people walking and sitting on beach chairs sprinkled the area between us and the waves. There were families in the shallow parts of the water, and behind them were a collection of bobbing heads floating over the waves as they came in. There were a few surfers floating beyond that, and shining upon it all was the hot summer sun. "Looks like the waves are pretty good today," Andrew noted. "See how they're coming in? They're in sets of 4. See? The waves coming in groups. Usually, one of the waves in the group is biggest, and that's what everyone tries to ride." Andrew explained. "Since it's your first time out here, don't try to take any of the waves. Just paddle out next to me and stay close, because surfers around here are very territorial and don't like kids they don't know riding their waves." "Sure," I responded, just trying to follow and not be too much of a nuisance. Andrew took off his shoes and shirt, leashed his board to his ankle, and started down towards the waves with me in tow. The white sand burned my feet as I ran down the beach after him. But as soon as I reached water, the heat was replaced with the familiar salty coolness that would come to characterize my summer. We splashed into the water and flopped our stomachs onto the surfboards and began to paddle. Seagulls called a song to each other as the sound of the churning waves provides steady drone. "Put your fingers together and make a scoop with your hands," Andrew instructed. "It gives you a lot more paddling power." Before I knew it, we were at the breaking waves. Getting past this line of relentless white water seemed insurmountable. Every time I would get close to getting beyond the breaking waves, another wave would come in and push me back almost to the beginning. The briny flavor of seawater entered my nose and throat. Andrew soon arrived past the breakers and sat on his board. He yelled out something, but I could not quite hear. The wash and noise of the breaking waves drowned out his words. I kept pedaling and kept hitting lines of white water. My eyes stung from the salt. Then, Andrew's word appeared much closer. Next to me, Andrew yelled, "Gosman, push your board under the wave. Here, watch me." Andrew pressed in front of his board down under the next wave that came along, and popped up behind the wave without getting pushed back. I copied this maneuver, although with somewhat less effective results. Now paddle. I paddled desperately. The next wave that came along, I replicated the maneuver. And again. Then suddenly, I was past the point at which the waves were breaking. I had made it. I straddled my board floating next to Andrew, out beyond the breakers. The quiet and serenity of the ocean at the place contrasted with the turmoil I had just been through. As I caught my breath, Andrew looked out towards the infinity of the ocean. "Just hang out here for a while," he advised me. My heart pounded. I was in no position to argue. As the sun warmed my back, my legs were cooled by the gentle, salty current. My pulse rate subsided, and I regained my strength. Soon, the slow rhythms of the surfers melted the time away. My troubles that lay on just the other side of the breakers seemed not to matter at all. The swells calmly passed under my floating board with a reassuring regularity. Occasionally, a line of pelicans would stream silently past, skimming the breakers. Soon, Andrew paddled off onto a wave, traveling towards the shore. From my position behind the breaking wave, I could see the back of Andrew's head gliding along parallel to the beach as he rode the wave. I tried to learn what he was doing by observation and without asking any questions. I didn't want to disturb the sound of nature that surrounded us. Somehow, it seemed that it would have been disrespectful to talk out loud. Andrew seemed fine with this situation. I don't know how much time passed, but after one of Andrew's wave rides, he paddled back towards me. He pushed himself up into a seated position next to me and said, "One rule is you should never surf when you're too tired. You must pace yourself." Okay. So, when you paddled in, all you have to do is let the wave take you. You can stay on your belly on the board. I'll show you how to stand up on the board some other day. Hello, Mo Raiders. Welcome. Sure, I replied, as I thought that another day would be great. Just floating out in the ocean under the sun was magical enough for me. Soon, Andrew paddled off on the next wave towards the shore. I followed. The journey in was much easier than coming out. The waves just washed me right towards the shore. Once the water was shallow enough, I jumped off the board. I picked it up and ran up behind Andrew. That was great. How often do you come out surfing? Pretty much every weekend. It's right here, so why not? Yeah, good point. So, do you like it? Andrew asked. Absolutely. Incredible. If my enthusiasm did not meet the proper rules of coolness, Andrew did not seem to notice. We ran back up the wall and retrieved our shoes. Soon, we were crossing back over the traffic-packed A1A and walked along Neptune Avenue. You want to go surfing tomorrow? I can show you how to stand up. All right. Come by my house as soon as you get done with breakfast, okay? Cool. See you then. I waved and took off towards my house, carrying my surfboard along under my right arm. musical awakening. The alarm clock rattled early, and I gobbled down my usual breakfast of egg, bacon, and toast. As soon as I could manage to disentangle from Mom and Bob, I took off towards Andrew's house with my orange surfboard slung under my arm. The bright morning sun warmed my face, and a distinctive Florida smell of rain-generated humidity entered my nose. My eyes locked on to a deep blue cloud bank off the horizon, and a gust of air challenged my grasp of the long surfboard. Usually, thunderstorms didn't hit the coastline until afternoon. This morning seems to be an exception, for no doubt the clouds were lining up early. My feet slapped the asphalt road as I quickened my pace. When I got to Andrew's three-story house, I knocked on the vintage screen back door. "Come in," Andrew's mother called out from her traditional place in the kitchen. As I entered the wide kitchen room, the sounds of a television turned into the Golf Channel blared from the next room over. In front of the TV was an old gray-haired man seated in a reclining chair. I speculated that this was Andrew's father, but he seemed much older than either of my parents, as they were older parents compared to some of my other friends. The old man ignored me. "He's upstairs." My attention was snapped back by Andrew's mother, directing me up the flight of stairs to Andrew's room. A distant rumble of thunder slightly jarred the antique windows in the house. As I emerged from the top of the stairs, Andrew's brother Sam exited a third-floor stairway door. "Uncas is in there," gesturing to a closed second-floor door behind which music was blaring. My knock needed an effort to overcome the noise emanating from within. I heard Andrew respond, "Come in," and I worked the cool brass knob. Andrew sat between two speakers with a black electric guitar in his grasp. The music was not disco, but something altogether amazing and different. With a scratch, Andrew picked up the needle from the record player, and the music disappeared. Placing his guitar down on his bed, he said, "No surfing today. Thunderstorms." "What was that music?" I blurted out, trying and failing to close my dropped jaw. "Zeppelin. You don't know Zepp? Tell me about it." "Zepp is awesome. Here, let me play it for you." And he placed the needle back on the record with a scrape. The amazing music began again, this time from the beginning. I had never heard music like that before. It was hypnotizing and seemed to speak to me at a different level than my disco-filled 8 tracks at home. We listened to 4 songs in a row before exchanging words. That is side 2 of Zeppelin 4. Andrew shrugged matter-of-factly. "That is so awesome," was all I could seem to say. Awesome did not really seem to capture the feeling in my chest from my first experience of hearing Led Zeppelin. But that was the only word I had at my fingertips, and it seemed to make Andrew smile. "Let me show you. I can play it." Andrew picked up the black guitar and began to strum. The sounds roughly approximated the songs we just heard, although a lot quieter and different sounding. Of course, it's not plugged in, and I'm no Jimmy Page. "Can I try it?" I asked. No way. This is my 3 pickup lapel Black Beauty. They call it the Fretless Wonder, and no one plays it but me. That sounded quite certain, so I changed the subject. Oh, well, play me some more tunes then. Alright. Have you heard Rush? Andrew seemed not to notice the subject change. No. Who are they? Andrew was unsleeving another record and placing it carefully on the turntable. As the needle struck the vinyl of the record, another rock and roll song began to fill the room. It was different from Zeppelin, but just as great. That is Caress of Steel. Pretty awesome, huh? Sure, was all I could manage. Just what do you listen to, Gosman? Well, I have a bunch of Village People albums, Bee Gees, Michael Jackson's Off the Wall. Gosman, you are such a dork. Disco sucks. This is where it's at. Oddly, the words did not feel like an insult, but more of an invite. And Andrew had a point. Disco did suck, and Zeppelin was the way to go. I had to have some new music. We played a few more albums from different groups. Andrew played Pink Floyd and Blue Oyster Cult, pulling each vinyl out of their sleeves with careful reverence. A shout out from downstairs interrupted our listening session. Andrew! Andrew! Came a deep, whizzing voice, which I assumed was Andrew's father. Andrew leaped out of his chair, opened the door, and poked his head at the top of the stairway. What? Andrew, come down here, came the brusque reply, and Andrew ran down the stairs, leaving me in front of the turntable. Just then, Sam poked his head into Andrew's room. He had a look on his face, like he was thinking of something. Bunkus is going to get in trouble, Sam informed me, with a familiar grin of salesmanship. Man, this music is smoking. Staying on the topic that I wanted to be on. I'll sell you a couple records if you want, Sam offered. I don't have any money left, but I'll trade you some of my 8-track tapes. How many you have? Sam queried. I got like 7 or 8. Sam looked up in the air and scratched his chin. Bring them over next time, and we'll see what we can trade. Just then, I noticed Sam's long-haired friend behind him. Enough of this ween. Let's get going. Sam and his friend rumbled upstairs just as a clap of thunder echoed against the old house. Andrew came up the stairs. You're gonna have to go. The old man's got some stuff I gotta do. You can leave your board for surfing next weekend. It's gonna rain soon. Sure. Andrew escorted me out the back door. The dark clouds were right on top of us, and gusts of wind kicked wads of leaves into the air. I made it home just before the rain began to pour. The next weekend, I collected all my 8-track tapes into a brown paper bag. Since hearing the music in Andrew's room, disco just didn't hold my interest the way they had before. As early as I could, I started down the street towards Andrew's house with my bartered items. I walked down the long driveway to the sprawling white 3-story house, knocking on the screen door upon arrival. As usual, Andrew's mother called me from her place in the kitchen. He's upstairs, she said. barely looking up at me as I passed. Gosman! Andrew greeted me in his second floor hideaway. He was seated in a chair, curling two barbells, one in either hand. His black Les Paul electric guitar rested on a guitar stand next to the stereo. What you got there in the bag? Oh, just some tapes to trade with your brother. He said he had some cool music he'd let me have for these. Well, leave them there. The waves are better in the morning. With that, I tossed the brown bag onto his well-made bed and followed him down the stairs to our waiting surfboards. We laid the surfboards down in the dewy grass, and Andrew began rubbing down the board with a lump of cylindrical wax. It's sex wax. Here, take some. Andrew handed me a block of the substance. It smelled of vanilla. That's a pretty stupid name, was my reply as I copied the rubbing motion of the top of my own board. You see, over time, the wax builds up into little lumps onto the top of your board. When you stand on the board, the little waxy lumps under your feet will help your foot grip, he explained. After a few minutes of waxing, we headed down Neptune Avenue towards the beach. We ran across A1A and climbed the wall facing the beach. Nature presented itself in front of us, a picture of stunning beauty. The sky, a perfect cloudless blue, and the ocean, a glassy sea green, interrupted only occasionally by sharp lines of incoming waves. We could not get in the water quick enough. Paddling out was easier this time because the diving technique Andrew had taught me to get past the breaking waves. Although Andrew arrived first, I was closer behind him this time. Soon settling into the sweet spot just behind the breakers. A perfect day beckoned. Surprisingly, there were no other surfers nearby. We had the waves to ourselves, it seemed. This seemed to relax Andrew. He became chattier than the first surfing day. If you want to try stand up, here's how. Here's how to do it. Eyeball a wave coming in that you want to catch. When it gets just a few feet away from you, start paddling as hard as you can. The wave will start to pick up your board, and that's when you place both of your hands on the board and jump with your right foot on the back of the board and your left foot on the front. Here, let's try it. Andrew identified a wave that I should try and take. The wax gripped my chest as I pointed the board towards the shore and started paddling. Just as he said, the surfboard started picking up speed. I grabbed the sides of the board and pushed to stand up. My intended mount shot out from under my feet, and I fell backwards into the wave. My body tossed around in circles under the water. I'm a good swimmer though, so I just held my breath under the wave until it was finished with me. When I resurfaced, I pulled the leash attached to my ankle and crawled back on top. I paddled back out to the shore. I had begun my attempt. That was a good first try, but be sure to jump forward when wiping out. Now, do it again. I repeated my efforts several times, each with the same result. Pretty soon, I was getting frustrated with not being able to stand up on the board. But Andrew cheered me on. Don't worry, you'll get it. Do it again. Andrew kept encouraging me. After about 10th or 12th wave, I finally stood up straight for about 2 seconds. I looked back at Andrew within that short moment and saw him raising both hands towards the sky in victory. I had accomplished something. When I paddled back to him, I sensed his own satisfaction at what his teaching had accomplished. Good job! See, I told you could do it. You just gotta keep trying. Just then, something appeared in the ocean a few feet away. Large black fins cut the surface of the glassy water. Dolphins, I pointed. Andrew's head snapped around. A family of 2 adult dolphin and 1 baby slowly passed within feet of us. The sound of their breathing each time they surfaced punctuated their effortless rolls. We sat on our boards, being as still as possible as not scare them away. But they soon passed us, seemingly undisturbed by our presence. That was cool. Does that happen often here? I asked. Not that close. That's pretty rare, Andrew answered. After a few more minutes, Andrew begun. We should go in. We don't want to stay out when you're tired. Although I didn't feel tired, I reluctantly agreed, deferring to Andrew's wisdom in matters of surfing. When we hit the beach, I found that I was exhausted, but I had not even realized it. We gathered up our things and the walk back to Neptune Avenue to Andrew's house. We threw our boards onto the grass and hosed them down. Andrew handed me the hose and I washed off, pausing occasionally for a drink of the flowing water. Soon, we were upstairs in Andrew's room, listening to more tracks from Andrew's record collection. As we were listening, I heard Andrew's brother Sam thumping up the stairs to his 3rd-floor bedroom with his friend. I looked over at the bag of 8-track tapes lying on Andrew's bed. Hey, I'm gonna go ask your brother if he has any albums to trade. Sure, just keep my door closed, was Andrew's response. I grabbed the bag of tapes and knocked lightly on the door leading to the 3rd floor. Enter, peasant, came the singular instruction from the attic room. I turned the knob and climbed up the last flight of stairs into Sam's attic bedroom. It was more like a teenage refuge than a bedroom. The room took up the entire top part of the house under the roof. The room was open all the way from one gable and to the other. The wooden rafters were exposed, although the space was occasionally interrupted by blacklight posters. Boxes of record albums lined up along one side of the space, and couches lined the other side. Under one of the gable was Sam's bed. The other gable end window housed his turntable and stereo unit and a couple of chairs. Sam sat like a king in one of them, with his long-haired friend in the other as his pseudo-prince. "What's the dork want?" his friend said, not seeming to care that I was standing in the room with them. "Gosney is cool, freak. He's going to trade me some tapes for some vinyl," Sam retorted, picking up 2 albums that he seemed to have prepared. He walked over to me and exchanged the records for the bag of tapes that I had in my hand. "This one is Led Zeppelin II, and this one is Pink Floyd's Metal. I'll swap you even," Sam bargained. "Sure, I guess," was all I could think to say, not being much of a bargainer. Sam grinned, turned his back to me, and waved me out saying, "Tell Punkus to keep his stereo down." With that, I had traded my pile of clean 8-track tapes for the 2 old scratched records Sam had offered. In hindsight, I know that I was taken. 2 scratched record for a bag of tapes? Despite this, it's okay. There really was no comparison between the disco tapes versus Led Zeppelin II and Pink Floyd's Metal. So, I hold no grudge. I walked down the stairs holding 2 ragged records, gazing at the mysterious artwork on their covers. All I wanted to do at that point was go home and put them on my turntable to listen to them. But first, I had to check in to see what Andrew was doing. He curled his dumbbells next to his bed, as I told him I'd better go. "Alright, Gosman. That was a good day surfing, huh?" "Excellent." Andrew then asked, "You want to come over next weekend?" This brought up an issue. I had forgotten about the summer arrangement between my mom and dad. Since the divorce, I had to split my summers between my mom's house and my dad's house, and I wasn't sure when I had to go to my dad's next. I punted. "I'm not sure. I'll get back to you," was my reply. Andrew seemed a bit dejected. It seemed like he wanted me to come over. I guess we were becoming friends. Okay, let's take a little break until we continue reading. And let me catch up on chat, because I know it's been going crazy. Oh, where did I leave off? Susan D, how are you doing? The throne is mine. Welcome, welcome. Caught a live, watched your very first stream with the Recovery Addict crew. Oh, appreciate it. Danielle, how are you doing? This is such a cute story. I love it. I had a couple giggles. I tried not to giggle too hard when I was reading. Rosalind Duke, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. So fun. It is fun. If you're watching, we love you, wonderful Wizard of Goz. Oh yeah. What a guy. Trish Norman. Saw Steve Gosney's post on X. I'm here. Oh, did he post on X? I appreciate it. Love the music. It's like Charlie Brown special music plus BB King showed up to play a solo. It's awesome. Nice. Gigi. Hello, hello. Pomo Gohan. I don't know if I'm still butchering your name, but welcome. MLS, how are you doing, good sir? Ichi Peaches, how are ya? And Slug, what's up? Stinky Poopy Man read the retirement home, then the retirement home shouts in joy. Helen T, how are ya? Hot coffee made, blanket heating up, Connor reading, Zen. Oh, glad you're enjoying it. End of childhood. I hope Gosney isn't telling the story of the first hobo fight he witnessed. He witnessed a hobo fight? Okay. Graceful Klutz, how are ya? Welcome from the Mo Raid. And if any of the Mo Raiders are still here, please consider hitting the like button and possibly the subscribe button as well. I appreciate ya. Zach, how are you doing? E-Rex, uh-oh, can't watch this while driving. Driving so soothing. We'll watch later. I appreciate it. And thank you for the $1.99 T-Rex. Yeah, you worked at the baby. You drive safe. Oh, and Mr. Steve Gosney, thank you for the 20 super chat. Jeff loved Rush and most of the music in his book. We were the same age. I'm honored with your choosing to read my book. Much love. Much love to you, Steve Gosney. There's a really love his reading voice. I do not want to interrupt the flow. Nah, all good. Viva la chaos, as always, says Slug. And Tammy, how are ya? Hope you're doing good, Tammy. Ah, okay. And this will be chapter number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Chapter 8. Music games. My mom told me I had a few more weekends left in Ormond Beach before I headed to my dad's for the rest of the summer. By the time the next weekend rolled around, I had practically memorized my 2 new records. Especially the Brown Bomber, as Led Zeppelin 2 is known. The opening track is Whole Lotta Love. Good one, by the way. If you haven't listened to A Whole Lotta Love, better listen to it. An orgasmic explosion of rock and roll, sound, and fury. It then lines up for a journey through blues and rock and roll, ending on side 2 with the crunching Bring It On Home. The Pink Floyd record was much different. While it started out with a real rocker called One of These Days, it ends with a full set of evolving soundscapes in a tune called Echoes. I was mystified by the unusual music world explored by these groups. It was much different than the light radio-friendly music I had been listening to before, and it connected to a part of me that was just awakening. While I listened to the music at home, I inspected my surfboard in my room. Especially intriguing was the single fin, which screwed into a box clasp into a back of the board. The fin was about 8 inches long and hooked into a blade shaped for carving into the water. The screw had to be tightened down for the fin would slide back and forth along the box. The board was quite thick and had several dips or circular decompressions which were ringed by slight cracks in the fiberglass. The board had obviously been used and it showed its many scars. The orange top was in much better condition. The Natural Arts logo was featured prominently in the center, with Cocoa Beach written in small lettering just under the logo. My mom was strict and would not let me leave the house during weekdays, even during the summer. I had responsibilities, and my mom would not allow any excuses for avoiding them. I looked forward to my last opportunities to surf with Andrew before I had to go to Dad's house. Soon, Saturday arrived, and I headed out the door just after breakfast. I left our little neighborhood of less expensive houses with my surfboard tucked under my arm. Soon, I arrived at Andrew's house, walking down the long driveway to the estate beyond. Andrew was already in his t-shirt and bathing suit, waxing his board on the green, wet grass. "What's up, Gosman?" Making more of a statement than a question. We quickly polished off the remaining nub of wax and tossed a tiny bit that was left into the garbage can as we headed down Neptune Avenue towards the beach approach. The beach was as beautiful as ever, although it seemed like the surfers were out in force today. We paddled out together and took our place amongst the crowds of surfers. Andrew seemed to know many of the surfers around us, and they him. Pretty soon, Andrew paddled hard and caught one of the larger waves. I watched his head glide from left to right as happened when a successful wave was caught. He He paddled back near where I was, but did not seem to acknowledge that I was there. A couple of surfers around us called, "Good job, Andrew," and "Nice ride." I figured it was time for me to try again and identified a medium-sized wave that seemed right. I paddled hard and hopped up once the wave began to curl. My stand this time lasted over 4 seconds, the longest I've been able to stand yet. But the wave closed out, which means breaking from both sides at once. I crashed into a churning washing machine of white water. Still, I was getting the hang for surfing. I bellied back onto the waxy board and paddled out to Andrew's location. He didn't seem to acknowledge the success of my last ride. I guess it wasn't much compared to some of the other surfers there. Andrew caught a few more waves, and soon we became separated from one another. Just then, a large set of waves appeared behind me. I paddled hard to catch one of the waves. As I started to lift onto the board, I noticed another surfer had dropped in just behind me. I felt uncontrollably in front of the other surfer, and I could hear him yelling profanities at his board skimmed across my head. His board skimmed close to my head. Andrew's warnings about territorially immediately burst into my thoughts. When I recovered from the fall, I decided I'd better head back to shore. So, I paddled onto the next wave and drifted onto the beach. As I unstrapped the leash, Andrew called out from behind me, "Hey Gosman, what happened?" I just don't want to cause you any troubles," I replied. "No, man, it ain't like that. We just got separated. Would you rather clear out from here?" he asked. "Yeah, I guess so." We gathered up our boards and walked together down Neptune Avenue back to Andrew's house. We threw our boards onto the grass and hosed ourselves off. Andrew said, "Hey, let's listen to some more tunes. Why don't you come up?" We passed into the house through the traditional screened-in black back door. Did they ever use the front door? His mother stood in the kitchen in her usual place, and Andrew's father was perched by the television, watching what seemed to be the same golf program as before. We paid them no heed and scrambled up the stairs into Andrew's room. Andrew entered first and began flipping through his vinyl albums one by one. He told me to close my eyes. With the familiar clunk of the stereo turning on, Andrew said, "See if you can guess what group this is." I heard the needle contact the record vinyl, and an unfamiliar song began to play. "I don't know that one," was my first reaction. "That's Frank Marino of a group called Mahogany Rush. Now, try this one." And he set the needle on another record. A single repeating bass note thumped into the room. Of course, I knew that one. I have been listening to that for the past week. "One of These Days" by Pink Floyd, I answered. "All right, here's another." The needle dropped onto the record. After a pause, Andrew smiled. Stumped? It's "Carry On Wayward Son" off the Left Overture by Kansas. Actually, I'm going to stop right here and say, my dad and I, we played the same game. In the car, he'll play music, and he'll tell me, "Guess the artist." And I always try and guess off the first note. I'm like, "Oh, it's this person." But he'll just slap my leg and say, "Listen to the lyrics. Listen first, and then guess." So it's funny that you played pretty much the same game, but with vinyl records. We went on with this game until I figured it was time for me to go home. I exited out the way I had come in. Andrew waved from behind me. "See you around, Gosman." I headed back down Neptune Avenue towards my house. Midnight movie. The next week, Andrew phoned me at my house. "Hey Gosman, what's up?" "Nothing. What's up with you?" Giving the standard reply. "Sam is going to Orlando tomorrow to hit the used record stores. And then, afterwards, we're gonna go see the midnight movie. The song remains the same. It's our chance to see Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin on the big screen. Sam says he'll charge us $20 if we want to go along." "What, your brother's driving?" I asked, trying to get details. "Of course. What do you think?" "Dunno. Let me call you back." "Okay, but I've got to know by tonight." With a cool, I resaddled the receiver. I saved up some money from working odd jobs. I scraped together whatever money I could find in my room and counted it up. I was excited to discover that I had an extra $40 to spend on records, food, or whatever. I quickly called Andrew back to tell him I was in. After clearing the trip with my mom just after lunch, who expressed her unusual worries over what seemed like an extra extended period, I jogged over to Andrew's for the road trip. Sam Dyer screeched up in the mid-70s Mercury Bobcat station wagon. The sides seemed as if they had repainted the color tan with cheap paint, covering rusted areas. Sam's long-haired friend was in the front passenger seat. "Get in, punkus," came Sam's familiar taunt. The long-haired kid grinned. "Nerdmobile." Andrew and I piled into the back seat. The car's musty floorboards held white sand ground into the carpet fibers. Sam squealed the tires onto the road, injecting the additional slight odor of melted rubber in the cabin. Sam played "Never Mind the Bullocks" by Sex Pistols on the ride over, with him and his friend occasionally mouthing their favorite lyrics to individual tones. "Now, I got a reason. Now, I got a reason," they yelled along with the music. Between songs, Sam and his friend took great pleasure in relentlessly teasing Andrew. Andrew sat quietly in the back seat during the harassment, looking down at nothing. "I wanna be anarchy," they shouted. The two older guys ignored my presence. "You're a liar," they sang. With our ears throbbing from the hour-long punk assault, the station wagon nosed into a parking space in front of Orlando Retro Records. Andrew and I stumbled out of the cramped back seat and took refuge in the mountains of vinyl stacked in the store. We flipped through hundreds of albums, seeking unique LPs. "You ever seen this one?" I yelled over to Andrew as I held up the vinyl cover art. "That sucks." Getting to the L section, I curiously examined the stack for Led Zeppelin records. Resting in the back of the crate, the cheaply printed title, "Blueberry Hill," revealed itself, with the curious subtitle, "Led Zeppelin." What was that? I pulled it out and yelled over to Andrew. He responded with a hush, "That's a boot." "A what?" "A bootleg. Get it. They are hard to find." Sam was at the counter with a pile of my old 8-track tapes. I shrugged. Taking out all my money, I lined up behind him and plucked 20 on the counter. Walking out with this strange record. The rest of the crew soon gathered by the car with piles of LPs. Sam swatted the head of Andrew. "What did you get, punkus?" "Stop!" Andrew yelled in protest. The long-haired friend of Sam grabbed my Blueberry Hill, opening the folds. Expecting a taunt, I was surprised by a simple, "Cool," as he handed the record back to me. We climbed into the car and repeated the process with 2 more record stores. We grabbed some food at a roadside burger joint, scarfing down salty fries and greasy, dripping hamburgers. After dinner, we drove over to the movie theater to get our tickets. Andrew and I hopped out of the car in front of the ticket booth. Unexpectedly, Sam peeled out and left Andrew and I standing outside by ourselves. Andrew seemed to resign to this turn of events. "Let's go get our tickets," he sighed. We had to kill some time until the midnight movie began. So, we walked around the connected mall until showtime, pretending like we were interested in the mall, trying on different pairs. Like we were interested in the mall products. Andrew perused the sunglasses hut, casually trying on different pairs. The mall was practically empty when finally the theater opened. Our shoes made sticking sounds on the theater floor from soft drink residue. The smell of old popcorn butter wafted through the small theater. We flopped down into some middle row seats. The song remains the same, unfolded on the big screen. A white dove flew past, and acoustic guitar gently plucked as we sunk into the cloth seating. Pretty soon, some strange gangsters opened fire with Tommy guns on some strange werewolves with paint for blood. What was this? But soon, the band appeared. As the opening riffs of rock and roll began, someone yelled from the back of the theater, "Turn it up, you Ivy League faggot!" Surprisingly, the volume responded. The decibel tested the limits of the theater's sound system, and Andrew and I cheered the amazing guitar musician weaving his magic in front of us. Every epic song had accompanying mini-movie, and each of the band members seemed like a superhero, each with his own powers. My favorite became John Paul Jones, who casually plucked his Thunder Ring tobacco, sunburst Fender Jazz bass. Jones' mini-movie was a mystical journey through foggy English moors. The lightning finger of Jimmy Page's guitar solo interrupted Jones' hypnotic organ music. "Aging stealing Jones's thunder," Andrew whispered to me shyly. John Bonham pounded out rhythms to race cars, and Robert Plant quested for blonde maidens in faraway castles. The movie swept us away from our sunny beach life in Ormond Beach to a fantastic musical location far away from the Florida sun. When the end credit rolled, Andrew and I exited the theater to darkness and Sam's awaiting car. Andrew and I slept during the journey home. I didn't even remember pulling the covers over my head when I got to my bed. But I knew I was happy. Summer ends. The next day, I walked over to Andrew's house, hoping to spend a little time with my friend before I left for my dad's. I dreaded going over there. My father kept his house in such tight order that there was no room to breathe. The white walls and creme carpet conveyed a clear message of "don't touch." Ebony Hindu statues from Bali graced polished teak wood furniture. The museum-like quality did not signal fun. worse still was my dad. He'd smile one moment and then lash out in a fit of rage the next. Walking on eggshells for weeks at a time depressed me. But my thoughts turned to a Rush tune. One likes to believe in the freedom of music and surfing, I thought, as I walked down Halifax and took a right onto Neptune Avenue. Walked up the big white house's long driveway and saw Andrew. He was playing basketball with two other middle school kids I recognized from school. They were also part of the athletic group, and I approached them warily. The three stopped playing for a moment, and Andrew looked over holding the basketball. Out of the blue, Andrew declared, "I've got an idea." The two kids he was playing with looked at him. "Who on two? Gosman can be on your team," he said, pointing at one of the kids. That kid laughed. "No way, man. He sucks." Unfazed, Andrew said, "We will switch around next time." And he threw the ball into the boy's chest. "I'm really not sure how to play basketball," I mumbled, but Andrew is not going to take no for an answer. The kid passed the ball back, and Andrew spun it in his finger. "No problem. You'll pick it up," he confidently asserted. "Now, guard me." Andrew began dribbling the ball, and the two other kids began to circle in front of the basket. I didn't really know what to do, so I spread my hands and tried to poke the ball away. Andrew spun around, sweeping me out of the way with one arm as he drove towards the basket, scoring on his first attempt. "Now, take it out of bounds, Gosman, and throw it to your teammate." I did as instructed, throwing the ball inbound, only to be intercepted by Andrew, who snatched the ball away upon entry, bounced it twice, and dumped the ball into the hoop. "Man, this sucks," my teammate exclaimed to the others. The other boy began to laugh, and Andrew along with him. "Hey, I got to go," I said, even though I had just arrived. Escaping, I turned back up the long driveway and headed home quickly as I could, not looking back. When I had to go to my dad's house on the other side of town for the second half of summer, I could not take along my surfboard or my records. My dad's philosophy was that kids should be seen and not heard. I did my best to fit in by staying in my room, reading until dinner was ready. When dinner arrived, I'd stay quiet and listen to Dad's stories as patiently as I could. "May I be excused?" I would politely request, never to be denied. The summer droned along at Dad's with dreams of breaking waves and music filling my head. School bus rides. First day of middle school arrived, and I snatched my brown bag lunch from the countertop and headed out the door. The bus stop was located on the corner of Neptune Avenue and Halifax. But I did not expect to see Andrew there since his parents drove him to school. I approached a group of kids waiting for the bus. They were a rough mixture of tall and short middle schoolers. They eyed me warily. I slowed my pace and tried to integrate into the group as inconspicuously as possible. The distinctive sound of the school bus's diesel engine soon appeared, and the group recognized itself into a line. I took my place in the back of the line. The school bus rattled up, squeaking to a stop, and the door swung open. The kids filed in. Each bench seat held 2 kids. As I passed each seat containing a single person, I was greeted with dirty looks and glares from the occupants. This was going to be a problem, I thought. Near the back of the bus, there were a kind of face gazing out the side of the window. I quickly slipped into the seat next to him. Over the bus radio played the opening records of Journey's Who's Crying Now. My eyelids drifted shut as the sound from the music drew my consciousness away from the people surrounding me. The Steve Perry vocals calmed my thoughts, and I unconsciously began to quietly sing with the chorus. Near the end of the song, the guitar solo wept its longing notes into my heart. The song faded out, and I opened my eyes. The kid next to me was listening also. Hey, I'm Steve. Brian. That's a good song, isn't it? Yeah. Neil Scone is awesome guitar player. You play? No, but I'm thinking about picking up a guitar, I replied honestly. Just then, I noticed 2 girls sitting behind us were paying attention to what Brian was saying. Giggles erupted. One of the girls, the blonde one, reached out teasingly and smacked Brian on the top of the head. Later, I learned it was tomboyish Kim, and Kaylee in the long, straight brown hair. Brian began, "Oh, this is Kim and Kaylee. They live next to me." "Hey girls," I smiled. "You're at the first bus stop?" "Yeah." Kim looked at me in the eyes and smiled. My spirit lifted immediately, and the bus ride did not seem as bad. I guess the welcoming smile of a girl in 7th grade has that effect. The bus stopped a few more times, packing the kids in one top of another. When the bus arrived at Ormond Junior High School, I got lost in the crowds of middle schoolers, each one trying to find their way around the new school. Teachers manned the hall, directing masses of lost kids in every different direction. Arriving at homeroom challenged everyone's sense of direction, including my own. But somehow, we found our way. I seated myself at a desk in my homeroom, awaiting further instructions. The teacher handed out schedules to everyone in the homeroom and gave us a quick overview of the layout of the school. Us 7th graders were mostly located at the north end of the school. When the bell had rang, the class sprang from their desks in unison. We hit the hallway scrambling for direction. It seemed every 7th grader was being funneled down one long hallway to get to the back of the school, where the 7th grade classes awaited. Unfortunately, the long hallway was lined with towering 8th and 9th graders who were intent on harassing us as we passed. As I rounded a corner, a group of kids were gathered, laughing together. In the middle was Andrew Dyer. I smiled and waved. Our eyes made contact, and for a moment, his laugh stopped and the corners of his mouth fell. His gaze averted. The group of boys surrounding him filed away into class, with Andrew following close behind. Distance. Changing classes challenges the week in middle school. Bullies know the hallway choke points and choose these places to gather, waiting for student victims to pass. Today was my day. As I passed as inconspicuously as possible, one of the bigger kids smacked my load of books down out of my hands. He came at me with his chest and yelled, "Watch where you're going." A couple of his buddies snickered in the background. All I could do was gather up the books. Out of the corner of my eye, Andrew stood with the crowd, smiling. My disappointment in him washed away my anger at the bully. Next time I saw Andrew, I called out again, this time more insistently. "Hey, Andrew." Andrew appeared not to hear and turned away. The school friend. Waiting on the corner of the school bus with older middle schoolers was a bit unpleasant. I tried to time it so that I arrived right at the bus stop when the bus arrived. But unfortunately, the bus was a bit unpredictable, leaving periods of time where I waited with the rough bus stop group. On the other hand, riding the bus was not so bad once Brian and I became regular seating partners. It helped to have a seating partner because you knew where you could sit and not be harassed. Since Brian lived in the bus stop just before mine, he often snagged a single bench seat for himself, giving me a place to sit without much hassle. I greeted him, "Hey Brian," as I slid into the seat. Lunatic Fringe by Red Rider was playing on the bus radio. Brian kept an eye out of the window for cars. Occasionally he would spy a Z28. "Hey, check that out, the blue Z28. When I get a car, it's going to be just like that one." "Nah, Corvettes are much better," I'd argue. "I'm going to get a Corvette with a 350 cubic inch engine." "Yeah, but the Z28s are much cooler." The banter would continue without ever really resolving itself. We would apply the same rules of conversation to music. "Kiss is the greatest band out there," Ryan would begin. "Nah, Kiss is for bullies and kids. Led Zeppelin is the greatest band out there. Not as good as AC/DC. Come on, they're just playing the same song over and over. Zeppelin has so many great songs, they don't even compare." Led Zeppelin's "Fool in the Rain" came on the radio, shutting down our conversation. The bus driver used the bus radio to pacify the rowdy middle school kids. This did make the ride a bit more bearable. When a good song would come on, I could zone out, letting the music take me into a more perfect space, away from the cramped bench seats of the school bus. Usually, the bus driver kept the radio on the hard rock station. Occasionally, Andrew and I would pass in the hall of Ormond Middle. Most of the time, he would only mutter, "Hey Gos," before quickly moving off. It was to continue like this for the rest of the school year. Although I continued to collect records and listen to music, I was sad that Andrew would not share these discoveries with me. But soon, new friends and interests entered my life, and the sadness of withered friendship became a thing of the past. My bus benchmate Brian seemed to need a friend, and our time together became increasingly filled with talk of music, comic books, and girls. As we grew closer, I found out that Brian, Kim, and Kaylee also surfed at Neptune Avenue Beach Approach. Needing a new surfing connection, we made plans to go surfing next weekend. A big day. Saturday morning, I met up with Brian, Kim, and Kaylee. Orange surfboard firmly grasped under my arm. We all walked together to the Neptune Avenue Beach Approach. When we arrived at the beach wall, our eyes widened. Looking out into the ocean, it was clear that the surf was up. Way up. The ocean churned with white water, and there were two distinct breaks of waves. The outside break seemed to be more rideable, and we could spy a couple of surfers far out past the break. In Ormond Beach, you can take advantage of large waves when they come because most of the time, the waves are not much to brag about. I suppose a little bit of fear, but did not reveal into my companions, especially, for some reason, to Kim. They may have felt the same way, but I really don't know because they didn't say anything. Instead, we carried our boards to the edge of the water and began paddling. It took my maximum effort to arrive at the second break. The waves were not just large, but also chaotic, crashing into each other at angles coming from two different directions. The water was white with foam and the current pulling my body parallel to the beach. I focused my mind and will on each stroke of my arm, making sure to cup my hands to get maximum power. As I pierced the inner break, there was a short respite as I paddled the open water to the second outside break. The outside break formed a shallow sidebar that lurked beyond the first line of waves. Once I reached the sandbar, I jumped off my board and stood up. The water over the sandbar was surprisingly shallow, coming just above my knees, but the waves breaking just in front of me seemed even larger than what I had guessed from the shoreline. Each wave would submerge the shallow sandbar under overhead water as they passed, only to recede into shallowness once again. Brian, Kim, and Kaylee arrived beside me on the sandbar. I peeked at the girls in their bathing suits before we made our second effort to reach the bank of the outside break. At first, it did not seem we could make it. The chaos of intersecting waves became a forgotten relic of the first break, replaced by the organized size and tidal violence of the second break. Line after line overhead waves threatened to drown me in salt water, but for the buoyant board leashed to my ankle. I submarined under each large wave, fervently paddling to the next monster after surfacing. My will held, and I arrived at a relative calmness beyond the second break. Brian was nowhere to be seen, but Kim and Kaylee had also arrived past the second break. Kim and I made eye contact, but there was too much going on for conversation. The large set of waves kept rolling in, and we wanted to take full advantage of this opportunity. As soon as I identified a wave, I'd furiously paddle, taking off and leaping right onto the board. Wave after wave picked me up and carried me along. Several hours passed of great surfing, and over time I lost contact with Kim and Kaylee. The waves were too good to turn away from. So, despite my fatigue, I kept up with the assault to the outside break. I spotted a large incoming set and began to paddle onto the one of the huge waves. As I pushed myself up onto my feet, I looked down at the length of the wave, only to see the entire wave pitching forward in, closing out. Instead of jumping forward as I should have done, I laid back. The surfboard kept traveling straight down. The front of the board nosed into the shallow sandbar. As I fell off the back of the board, the full weight of my body pressed the single fin into the flesh of my upper right thigh. It felt as though someone had hit me as hard as they could with a baseball bat. I grasped my leg with my right hand and looked down at once. My eyes looked deep into the fat, muscles, and sinew of my leg innards. Pain struck upon this sight. I did not look down again. Struggling to keep my head, I put my belly onto the board and paddled back to shore. The waves assisted the momentum, and the sleepy fatigue entered my brain. Dragging myself onto the sand, I laid on my back, and I've passed out on the beach. And I will catch up on chat real quick. Let's see. This is true story, by the way. Says, mostly true novelette. We're all kind of lurking, I think. Yeah. Lurking is the way to go. I love when the song remained the same comes on and the guitar was slapped with a bow until all the horsehair strings are shredded. So cool. Nice. Shelby, how are you doing? And Rosamond Ranch. Howdy, howdy. Just taking a break from lurking to say hi. I'm enjoying this. I appreciate it. And 79 Cecilia. Oh, I made it to a live reading. Welcome. And hello to you, Layla. How are you doing? And Nicola. Long time no frickin' see. Thank you for the £2 super chat. Love you all. Connor, you're amazing. Love lurking. Well, glad you're joining. This is wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Connor. Oh, thank you, Mr. Gosney. Still here. Hey, how you doing? There are two main differences. One is that the friendship with Andrew renewed the next summer. I compressed the 2 summers into one for the book. Gotcha. So that's the nearly true part of the book. Okay, I thought this was going to be a 2-parter, but I think we can do this in this whole video. So, let us continue. Hello, Daily Dysfunction. Long time no see. Recovery. Evidently, while I was unconscious on the beach, Kim ran for help. I had lost a lot of blood, and the pain put me in a mild shock. An ambulance picked me up on the beach and took me to the hospital. The doctors ended up putting 76 stitches into 3 layers of the flesh of my right upper leg. Ouch. The next school day that I could make were mounted on a set of aluminum crutches. My leg was wrapped tightly in bandages. In the bus, the Loverboys song "Turn Me Loose" blared from the bus radio. Ryan seemed excited to see me, and soft girlish smell reminded me that Kim and Kaylee were in the seat behind us. A load of kids exited the Ormond Jr. The crutches aiding my movement off the bus and into the halls. When I entered my first period class, previously unknown classmates surrounded me and asked what happened. Got skegged by my surfboard. Pretty bad damage to the leg. Second period brought more of the same questions. My answers began to get shorter. Skegged or surfing accident. By the third period, I decided to get more creative. When a group of girls approached me in the hallway and asked what happened, I replied, "Shark." In each of my classes, I was met with a similar reception. What happened? Stabbed by a robber? Occasionally, someone would actually want to know the whole story, so I told them what really happened. For the moment, I was the most popular kid in middle school as I limped through the hallways. Kim told everyone in school that she saved my life. But I think that is a bit of an over-exaggeration. Over time, my leg healed, leaving a deep scar. I lost the crutches. The kids quickly forgot about the story, and the popularity hierarchy returned to normal. I took the surfboard out one more time to prove that I was not scared, but hung it up after that. My surfing days were over. Passage of time. 4 years passed, and my senior year at Seabreeze Senior High School arrived. My friend group had changed again, and my worries became more adult. All the solicitations arrived at our mailbox in white envelopes, with college applications flowing in the other direction. The animal print covers of my bedroom changed to a more mature and manly brownish hue. Music continued, with forays into guitar and settling on electric bass. One night, the phone in my home rang. Not my responsibility, I thought, as I plucked away at my Rickenbacker bass. Rickenbacker? Trying to master a new Rush tune. My mom entered my room and said, "Andrew Dyer is on the phone for you." Andrew? I had not heard from Andrew since middle school. We would occasionally pass in the halls, but the encounter highlight would be a meaningless nod. I put down my bass and grasped the receiver. "Hello?" "Gosman!" came in an enthusiastic voice over the phone. "Hey, what's up?" "Just wondering what you're doing," Andrew said mysteriously. "Not much, just getting ready for dinner." "Is Bob there?" Andrew asked. "Yeah, why?" "Just wondering if I could come over for a bit. I'll bring my guitar and we can listen to some records." "Sure, if you want," was all I could reply as my curiosity piqued. Soon enough, Andrew arrived at our front door holding his guitar case in his right hand. He had gained quite a bit of muscle, and I suspected more than just normal gym activities had led his buff He had gained quite a bit of muscle, and I suspected more than just normal gym activity had led to his buff physical condition. He looked at me in the eye and gave me a big smile. "Gosman!" walking confidently into our home. My mom welcomed Andrew and asked him, "Andrew, would you like to stay for dinner?" The menu of roast beef and white rice declared itself from the kitchen through the enticing smell of gravy and beef. Andrew politely stated, "Yes, Mrs. Gosney, that will be fine." After this brief exchange, Andrew followed me back to my room, passing my brother's "Do not enter, ever" sign tacked loosely to his door. Andrew set down his guitar case in my room and looked over my belongings with curiosity. Gone were the Legos, die-cast cars, and children's toy, replacing them since Andrew and I had last been together. Were a new set of interest. I had amassed quite a record collection, as well as picking up my own musical instrument, the bass guitar. "What been you listening to?" he asked. I began to flip through one of the crates of LP records to see if I could locate something different. How about this? On the record turntable I placed "Ghost in the Machine" by The Police. The needle dropped precisely on "Spirits in the Material World." When it was done, Andrew said, "That's pretty awesome. I see you're playing bass guitar now. Want to try my lapel?" He unclicked the latches on guitar case, and pulled out his black electric six string. Nah, that's okay. That's your guitar anyway. No, it's cool. If you want to play, you can. I think I'll pass. After a few more songs and some forced conversation, Andrew blurted out, "Hey, I gotta talk to Bob." He laid his guitar into his case and walked out into the kitchen, leaving me in my bedroom alone with his guitar. I sat and waited, quite confused by what was going on. A few minutes passed, and Andrew came back into my bedroom. He lashed his lapel into his case and said, "Hey, I just realized I gotta go home. I can't stay for dinner." I politely replied, "Okay, thanks for coming over," not having much more to say. With a, "That was pretty awesome, Gosman," Andrew exited out the front door, waving goodbye. When the door closed, I turned to my mom. What was that all about? Andrew had been waitlisted into his first choice of college, Georgia Tech, Mom recounted. Since Bob played quarterback at Georgia Tech in college, he served as a local alumni liaison for the university. Andrew wanted Bob to call the admission department and see what he could do. "So, what are we going to do?" I asked. "I mean, is he really my friend now?" But this time, Bob had come up behind my mom and was listening to her explanation. My mom calmly stated, "That doesn't matter. We can help somebody, and help him we shall." Bob placed a call to Georgia Tech admissions. Bob placed a call to Georgia Tech admissions office the next day. He discovered that not only was Andrew waitlisted, but he was also on the reject list. Bob talked to them for what seemed like half an hour, discussing the ins and outs of Andrew's application. Finally, he hung up the phone. Bob convinced Georgia Tech admissions to send a letter of acceptance instead of the planned rejection letter. I never heard from Andrew again. Sentimentally, these memories left a nourishing imprint on the soil of my being. Many more years passed: high school graduation, college, jobs, marriage, parenthood, but my thoughts often drift to those days with my summer friend. Summer between elementary school and middle school began a journey into adulthood that will always be a part of mine. What is that feeling in my chest? A yearning for a lost friend? Or is it a longing for a childhood never to be revisited? Side 2 of Led Zeppelin 4 bursts out from my stereo, and I smile wistfully. Reflection. The hurt of friendship lost is softened by the passage of time. New friendships grow, and some wither. But the moments of adolescence are like the afternoon Florida rain showers on a summer day, passing us by with drama and impact. While surfing quickly waned, my love of music continued. Life intrudes into sentiment and takes precedence. I have moved on, but there is something about our middle school years that will always be a part of who we become. And that, my dear friends, conclude The Summer Friend by our own good friend, Mr. Steve Gosney. What a frickin' book.